The Bard's Tale, one of the more iconic series of yesteryear when it comes to adventuring, role-playing, fighting games. A trilogy of games that were unique in the way they were presented and the original design and way the game was handled was a bit of a gamble, but a gamble that ultimately turned out to pay off. The adventuring part is moving around in different locations, trying to find clues, solving puzzles, and whatnot. Uh, Nothing special in that department. The role-playing aspect was as simple as being able to level characters. There wasn't any decision making that would be required for you to make that would potentially change anything. It was basically just leveling characters. The fighting, of which there was quite a bit of in all three games, was entirely text-based. Something that will seem horribly simplified or simplistic by modern eyes, but oddly enough, it is actually one of the things that is most fondly remembered from that series as being one of the most iconic aspects of it. The reason the fighting was kept simple was that it allowed for more content to be delivered. The Commodore 64 and Amiga were considered to be very, very strong computers at the time of their release, and while that may have been the case, there was still something called limited storage, limited memory, and while it technically would have been possible for them to make a much more engaging and an advanced combat system, it would have taken up multiple disks, and they would rather give you content instead. And it worked. It paid off. Um, the subsequent games retained the popularity of the original Bard's Tale, and there was a clear indication that even though the text-based combat might have been a simplified way of resolving combat, it was something that people enjoyed. The first game was find the bad guy and beat him. The second game, the Destiny Knight, involved finding seven pieces of the Destiny wand and put them back together in order to um, defeat the bad guy. Of course, because of that, you had to travel to a lot more locations than you did in the first game, and the sheer scope of the game, if you were to lay them out, each square being 3 meters long, it would probably have been quite a large game. The game was at a foundation level exactly the same as the original, except for some minor changes. The first game, for instance, did not allow for ranged combat, which was something that was added in Bard's Tale 2, and items with charges. In the original game, when you used an item with charges, it had a chance of breaking, whereas in the second game, they actually added charge numbers to the items, so you could see exactly how many uses you had out of an item. For all three games, some of the puzzles were simplistic, some of the puzzles were quite devious, especially about Steel 2, which got some extremely uh, borderlining, frustrating, annoying, stupid puzzles. Rewarding once you've solved them, but extremely daunting. But besides those elements, the different character classes, the games were quite uh, varied in your choice of character classes. You had the basic fighter and the paladin, but then you also had the rogue and the hunter. And when it came to magic, which is an integral part of Bard's Tale, you had multiple different choices. You could start out as a conjurer, and once the conjurer had gained 3 spell levels, which is 7 character levels, it's basically set up the same way as Dungeons and Dragons, that 5 with 2 character level, you gain access to another spell level. You had the option to change to a different class of caster. If you went straight for power, you could go from conjurer or magician into sorcerer, and from sorcerer into wizard. In Bard's Tale 2, the Archmage was added as an extra caster class, and yet again in Bard's Tale 3, the Chronomancer, which is a vital caster for the game. You can't complete the game without a Chronomancer, and of course the fabled Geomancer, which was an ability to turn a fighter into a caster. Some very, very powerful spells, but the fighter class would lose any extras that was associated with being of that class, like multiple attacks, the abilities to cause critical hits, and that kind of stuff. But Sales 3 went well beyond the scope of Bard Sale 2 by forcing you to go through 7 different dimensions in order to solve the necessary puzzles in order to defeat a god. A bit of a task, and if you didn't transfer characters from Bard's Tale 2, then it was highly recommended that you gained a certain amount of levels before you even took on the main quest. The elderly gentleman at the review board would not allow you to start the main quest before you had proven your mettle. And as I mentioned earlier, you needed a Chronomancer. The Chronomancer was required to travel through the different dimensions, and it was also used quite intelligently as the copy protection. But the Amiga version of Bard's Tale 3 actually got an introduction. Further additions was made to about Sales 3 compared to the 2 previous games. As I mentioned earlier, extended caster classes, but also an automap feature. Not a very good one, but 80 auto mapping was better than absolutely nothing, and it definitely helped you getting your bearings. You were still recommended to draw your own maps, but at least by having the in-game auto map, you had some sort of reference point so you could measure up your normal maps too. Now, you may wonder, why am I covering these very, very old games? Well, there's a very, very good reason for that, and that is because, of course, I blindly, some time ago, was browsing through Steam's gaming catalog, and I bumped into something that took me by surprise, by a positive surprise, actually, and that is what I actually intended to cover with this video. So, after showcasing these games, let's skip forward about some 30 years. And on that transition, welcome to the Bard's Tale Trilogy. The real reason for this video, not that I mind covering the original Bard's Tale trilogy, but when I saw this trilogy on Steam quite a while ago, I bought it virtually blind. Obviously, wouldn't have been fully blind because I was familiar with the original games and I loved playing them. But as we all know, remasters, remakes, whatnot, there's been quite a few of them that has been unmitigated disasters. And if you've been burned before, you would have some hesitation, and to be honest, there was a touch of hesitation when I bought this, but I bought it regardless. Being made aware of the fact that Bard's Tale 3 was still being worked on and would be released at a later date, so I was fully aware of that aspect. The game is officially labeled as a remaster, even though I would claim personally that it's a 50% remaster and 50% remake due to the quality of life improvements added to the game, or to the trilogy, of which there are absolutely bucket loads. The official label is a remaster, so I'm not going to counter that, but there's a lot of features that wasn't available in the original games that makes it a lot more digestible for newer players. But at the same time, they have been respectful enough of the original material that anyone who played the original games and enjoyed whatever playing those games will not feel that anything has been taken away from them. I'm good at smacking things when they deserve smacking, but I also like to think that I'm good at showering with praise when it's justified, and this is a masterful remaster. It is based on the Commodore 64 and Amiga versions of the original games, and even though there is a unified interface going across all three games, the individual components that made the individual games special, like specific character pictures and monster pictures and things like that, has been kept within the different chapters. They obviously has been touched up and redrawn in a higher resolution to fit the remaster, and some of them I think is a bit not particularly successful, but by and large they have hit the nail on the mark. I was about to say hammer on the nail, whatever you call it. For those who may have heard of Bard's Tale 3, I was about to say Bard's Tale in general, but never got around to playing them, and maybe interested in having a look at what all the fuss was all about. This trilogy has been treated in such a way that the harsh edges of the original games has been polished off. You can still enable them to a certain extent, but by and large, this is a much more streamlined version of the original games. But again, not to the point of if you play this having played the original games, it's not a new game. The foundation is the same. So let us quickly go through some of the things that's been changed. By the way, I know this is an old video compared to the game's release, and better late than never and all that. But anyway, options. The graphical options: full screen, SSAO, shadows, bloom, grass. You can probably run this on a very, very modest system, I think the term is. Audio, a separate slider for music and sound effects. Sound effects has been added to make the combat more enjoyable, and main music audio will be Bard's tunes. Gameplay options, various miscellaneous options that you can choose to pick or not pick depending on your personal preference. It's always nice having choices. Legacy options, which will become relevant once I quickly go through the games by selecting a new game. You can choose any of the 3 volumes and you can play them like you did originally. If you bought them when they were released, of course, you would have been able to complete Volume 1, then wait, what was it, year and a half for Volume 2, and then again wait further some time for Volume 3, and you could transfer characters across. Obviously, with the new interface, it's a lot more streamlined, but I like the approach they've adapted to transferring. I have completed Tales of the Unknown, and I will showcase what they have done with the transferring to the Destiny Knight. For a new gamer not familiar with the Bard's Tale Trilogy overall theme, I would say Tales of the Unknown is a challenge. It hasn't got any major crippling puzzles. It's not overly complicated. The Destiny Knight is extremely heavy on puzzles, too heavy for my liking, and it's not even because it's puzzles, it's because the puzzles involved are devious. Not only are they complicated, but they're also timed, and it's the kind of time that if you don't get them solved within the time frame, game over. For me personally, the Destiny Knight is the weakest of the 3, and that's just because I am not a huge fan of non-logical puzzles. And of course it contains the Grey Crypt, which in a game series that's relying heavily on magic is a very unpleasant place. I'm not going to spoil it for you in case you are not familiar with it and want to play the game. Bard's Tale 3 had the most improvement compared to the other games. It had some, for the time, more modern thinking, as in an auto-mapping feature, a very, very basic one, but it was present. But the scope compared to the 2 other games is quite large, and even though it's quite possibly the darkest of the stories, I also think it is overall the best of them, but that's an individual thing. Let us quickly start Volume 1, because we can. Legacy mode. As I mentioned earlier, there is an option for setting various legacy options, which we can quickly go over. Play the game like it was played in the 80s. That's a statement I can sort of agree with. I can be quite a purist when it comes to things, and if you want to play the games like they were played in the 80s, you should be playing the original games on the original systems. That is the only pure experience. That being said, it's nice to have some legacy options available, and I personally, when I play this game, I play with some of them on, because habits. Individual inventory. In the remaster, you have a shared inventory with shared goals, shared whatever, and the individual inventory will split it, so you have to share items and money between characters. It's obnoxious and it's unnecessary in a modern game setting, but that's what we had back then. Miscellaneous game differences, which is somewhat important. Special slot for monsters only in Bard's Tale 1. 6 character slot, 1 special slot. You could not fill that special slot with anything but a special monster. No archery in Bard's Tale 1. No item charges in Bard's Tale 1. Instead, items have a small chance to disappear on each use. 8 slot inventory in Bard's Tale 1 and 10 slots in Bard's Tale 2. Minor skins only available in Bard's Tale 3. Rogue identifying items only available in Bard's Tale 3. Items and spells adjusted to match each game. There's certain parts of the miscellaneous game differences that I would like. Items and spells adjusted to match each game. Once done with the first game, I would definitely consider enabling this in other games. Because the main crippling thing about enabling it from the beginning is that you don't have any ranged attacks in Bard's Tale. And of course the fact that you don't know when a charged item is going to be used up. Game-specific songs. Enabling the setting restores the way song magic used to work in the originals. Song in Tales of the Unknown and the Destiny Knight revert to having their strengths vary with their dungeon difficulty. Songs in Sleep of Fate have their strengths vary with the level of the bard that is singing. That is one of the things I usually enable. Use unequipped items. This is a personal preference. You can basically, it allows you to use items that are not equipped, which was sort of a bug, but also because of the way the game was set up, something of almost necessity. Automat disabled. This is one of the big ones, the two big ones. An automat means that you have to draw the maps yourself. Because of the way dungeons and levels are designed, they have random teleporters, and even though you can, by using magic, get your bearings to a certain point, if you get teleported into an antimatic sphere, or square even, I think it's called, then you can't use magic, obviously, to get your bearings. So mapping on paper, possible, possibly enjoyable, but it's extremely daunting. Be warned, this is not for the faint of heart. For the experience requirements, it's basically in the remaster, they've lowered the experience requirement for levels, but it also means that set encounters can be done once, whereas in the original games you could go back to set encounters. Not really the same game, I'm very sure you had to save and exit and then come back, and then once you came back you could go back to the set encounters and do them again. That is an option you can enable that allows that to happen again, but then you need about twice the amount of experience for leveling. I actually play with this one on because I'm used to a certain flow, and that flow I find disturbed with the remaster XP options on. Save at guild only. This is the other pain point. The save at guild only enabled. Saving the game will only be possible when the party are in an adventurous guild or camp. Autosave will only fire when entering a guild. With miscellaneous game differences also enabled, but Tale 3 was not allowed saving anywhere since the original game introduced the save game option. Which is partially true. I'm fairly sure, at least for the Amiga version, if you saved the game you had to exit it as well. It was a minor nuisance that you had to reboot, but whatever. You still had to exit the game, so it was disruptive. No items in empty houses. The remaster adds some hints and random gear rewards to be found by searching the empty houses and cities. Taking this option will remove those. At empty houses will just be for finding random groups of enemies to fight or the occasional dungeon entrance. This makes gaining the first few character levels just a little harder. Entirely optional. Enable all, enable none. It's perfectly up to the individual. But we are just going to begin a game, and this is where you get a very important warning. Starting a new game will override your existing autosave. Are you sure you wish to proceed? You are, when you save the game in any of the chapters, it will put a marker next to the save game, signifying which chapter it belongs to. The autosave is a blanket across all three games, so if you are relying extensively on autosaves and you want to try one of the other games out for some reason, make sure you enter the game where you had the last autosave and make a hard save, because it will be overwritten when you start one of the other games. So, we got this introduction, which is an updated version of the original Commodore 64 introduction. I don't know why the Amiga introduction was so flat, but whatever. It was what it was. It's basically just setting up the story. We can skip that part. We will start in the Adventurers Guild. And the Guildmaster will basically tell us what we could just read before. So, remaster options, force menu, This is what it does. Nothing special, nothing spectacular. But Tale Trilogy Manual, and in this regard, I will have to give the developers so much credit for what they've done with this. This is as extensive a manual as you could possibly desire for all 3 games. There's not a question you can have about the gameplay or mechanics that will not be explained in this. It is top tier, well done, absolutely great. So then you have the cloth map. Well, you have a picture of the cloth map. Obviously, this is not a cloth map, but it showcases the city you are in. Scarborough, by the way. Then you have stats. No, sorry, beast theory. It will keep information about beasts you've been fighting as you fight them, but we haven't fought any, so no information available. Stats. Game stats. This is stored either per individual chapter or across the entire trilogy, and if you've created your own characters, these are pre-made characters that was also made in the original games. Nice little touch. In case you don't want to make your own characters, which is of course part of the fun of playing a role-playing game, you can just add these guys and start playing. But anyway, the game stats will keep track of battles fought, monsters summoned, damage dealt, all sorts of goodies, and it's basically for you to have some sense of progression, so you can see what you've achieved. The more actions menu is only available when you might see in the game, but I can showcase it quickly. Where am I? That's a good question, and you can get rough indications of where you are in relation to a dungeon entrance, or I'm fairly sure about still. One, it's the Guild of Adventurers. Cast a spell, self-explanatory. Bard's Tale, I was about to say Bard's Song, self-explanatory. Use an item, self-explanatory. Take portal up and take portal down. Some dungeons, towers, or whatever, will not necessarily have staircases you can go up and down. Sometimes they will only have portals, and you will need to go up and down said portals, preferably with a levitate spell. Don't do it without levitation spells, by the way. You can't go up, and you will take damage from falling down. So, party attack. Why would you want to use party attack, you may wonder? If you play with 6 characters, which I would recommend in Bard's Tale 1 and 2, because you can bump into situations where you need someone to join your party in order to progress. Specifically 2, not so much in 1, but regardless. And going back and having to drop a character off in order to come back and progress is a pain in the backside. So personally, I would play the first 2 games with 6 characters. But because, of course, if you have a slots free, then you can bump into Doppelganger, which will join your party and mimic one of your characters. You cannot tell the difference between the Doppelganger and your character. Some magic will reveal the Doppelganger, but mainly you will find out that suddenly you have one of the 2 identical characters will suddenly start attacking the party instead and things like that. So that's usually the indication of we got a Doppelganger and we want to get rid of it, and you can party attack the Doppelganger. New party order, should be rather self-explanatory. Toggle minimap, which I will display shortly, and the journal, which is basically a complete overview of all areas you've been into, and it stores a map over every single square in every single area. Quickly, just for showcasing, let's create a character, just a male human paladin, because why not? As you can see again, when you create a class, it shows everything that you could possibly want to know about the different races, the different classes, what their strengths and weaknesses are, what potential stats they might want to appreciate. As a paladin, you would probably want something like strength and constitution. You can reroll infinitely. That was also the case in the original games. That's not a new feature. You can reroll until your fingers fall off. Because this is a paladin, something like Strength and Constitution might be good. And while I will recommend, if you're playing this game and um, you are trying to get the best potential stats, just keep hitting reroll and keep an eye on the 2 stats that's most important for you or for the character you're making, and see what the highest number that pops up at any point is. We have a good indication so far that the highest we've seen in Strength is 17 and the highest we've seen in Constitution is 15, so we know that those 2 are probably the highest numbers. Just bear in mind though that hit points are also randomized, and you can actually be in a position where you have nearly 30 hit points with 9 Constitution and 19 hit points with 15 Constitution. As you level up, the Constitution effect will benefit your hit point gains, but at the start, you can end up in a position where you create a full party with virtually no HP. Can't recommend it. But anyway, we'll accept this character, then we can. This is an option that was added later in the trilogy. You can select any character portrait, or you can just go with the class default, which is chapter specific. So we'll go with that, and then you can name it and add it to the party and all that stuff. But because I don't want this video to be absolutely or be longer than it absolutely has to be, let's go in and showcase the game and what the remaster entails. So I'm going to be loading a game where I have beaten Tales of the Unknown. Yeah, it's been a while since I played it, but whatever. I'll just disable the minimap from the for the moment. Here are our characters, and I'm not going to spoil. I'm trying not to spoil anything. For some reason, because there was an update between I beat Tales of the Unknown and the current version it is now, for some reason, according to this, I have defeated nothing. But at the same time, if you look at the stats for Tales of the Unknown, you can see I have fought 481 battles. I have killed 4,813 monsters. So, yeah, well, a minor glitch. No, nothing major. It's not something that's going to make me cry my eyes out. But let's move around a bit in Scala Play so you can get some sort of feeling for how the graphics are looking touched up, a bit more modern than you would necessarily remember from the original games, but not to the point where you can't make the connection between the original games and this. And I think what they've done from a graphical point of view is to make the necessary updates to make the game modern while still retaining the charm and immersion, naughty buzzword, of the original games. Let's get into a fight with some poor random thing. Let's just so I can. I've already mentioned in the earlier part of the video that this is text-based combat, and they have spiced it up a bit in this version, not a lot. Ha! You face death itself in the form of 6 mad dogs. So I suppose that will be a bit of a spoiler. Let's just let our characters fight these enemies, and then we will obliterate the rest with magic, because we can. You select your attack, defend, cast spell, bard song, hide in shadows, whatever else you want to do, and then you can confirm whether you want to execute these commands. And we do. So, my monk hit 7 times for 1150 damage, which was nearly 3 times as much damage as my paladin. Critical hits, by the way, will kill instantly. That is the hunter's trademark. They can cause critical hits, and critical hits will one-shot anything, and you'll be surprised by what you can actually critically hit even. Anyway, we still have two mad dogs, so let's fight bravely. Let us defend, 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 and cast a spell. What they've done in the remaster is they've sorted the different spells available based on all, exploration, healing, buff, single target, multiple targets, curses, which is basically debuffs, and the summoning spells. Something that I would have loved to have seen, which is it's completely relevant, but because of the way that magic classes work, it would be nice having the option to sort the spells by um, subcaster class. So if I want to cast a conjure spell, I could just select the conjure spells and only see the conjure spells. If I want to cast a wizard spell, I could just select the wizard spells. But whatever, this works. We have two targets, so multiple targets. What can we find something? Got anything interesting? Why not something heavy hitting? A Mage's Maelstrom. That's also a group of opposing spellcasters on a Blair. Single group. Yeah, let's cast Vacuum's Wizard War. And defend. Yes, we want to do that. Oops. Did it hurt? I think it did. We found a maze. Hooray for that. So, that was the updated combat. And the next step is to show the journal. It is potentially spoilerish, so I'm just going to switch to the first dungeon level to minimize the amount of spoilers granted by this video. I mentioned earlier about mapping, and mapping is possible and necessary, especially if you're playing the original games or you're playing without auto maps in this version. But for those of us who've already played the original games and beaten the original games, for me personally, when I beat the first game, I decided I wanted to map every single square and every single dungeon in every single area. And I used this very, very generous auto mapping feature in order to do so. And as you can see, it will showcase something like spinners, where fixed encounters are, fixed traps, information squares, and all sorts of things. And for me, having, I mean, I already know the story, I already know the outcome of the different stories and all that, but it was just exciting to, by forcing myself to map every single square, to work out where I've missed something. And that is where the remaster is appealing to old gamers because, I mean, it's a chance to play the games again in a unified interface that's very smooth, very uh, easily or easy to work with and all sorts, but it's also a chance for you to go through areas that you maybe skipped uh, lightly through because they were too daunting or because you just want to complete the game or something, and then see if you can map every single bit of it. I said something about wanting to show the moving on. I'm fairly sure I need to go back to the Adventurers Guild in order to do that, which, run away. Don't want to fight that. To showcase when you, okay, I have got, you know what, maybe I should just check the minimap. There we are. See, the minimap came in handy. That's not the adventure skill. That's not the adventure skill either. Okay. I've got myself completely and utterly confused. Good thing I can yawn. It's over there. Come on. Come to daddy. Here we are. This should be. As you can see, because we beat ah because I've already beaten this game, I can begin volume 2, The Destined Knight. And this is how it handles it, which is something I find to be very interesting. Bring over your characters exactly as they are, with all experience and items. All inventories will be preserved. Full power transfer. Characters will be leveled down to a suitable level for the content. All inventories will be preserved. Moderate power transfer. All characters will be reset to level 1. All inventories will be cleared for reset. Basically, you're retaining your characters, but everything else is gone. The inventories, their levels, everything. For the purpose of Bard's Tale 2, I'm fairly sure it brought my characters across at level 12 with a moderate power transfer. It is to allow you to maintain a modicum, I think it's called, of a challenge, because if you do a full power transfer between Bard's Tale 1 and 2 and get into 3, then your characters are going to find most encounters, especially early game, ridiculously easy. But it is a complete individual decision, and it is a nice choice to have, or a nice option to have, so you can decide whether you want to retain the power you've gained or reduce yourself a bit in potential strength when you go on to the next chapter. This video is guaranteed to be far longer than I wanted it to be, but you know what, so be it. The Tale Trilogy Remastered is, for those of us who have played the original games and enjoyed playing the original games, it's retaining all the stuff that made the classics, basically. It has polished some things up, it's smoothed some things out, it got a ton of quality of life improvements, and if you, for some reason, this game has been out for about 2 years now, if you have missed hearing about it, and you have any interest in the old Bard's Tale games, then this trilogy is, yeah, it's you can safely acquire it and not have anything to worry about, because it's been caretaken with a very, very delicate hands, a very, very delicate touch, and whoever was responsible for the remaster has to be applauded for their ability to deviate when it benefits the player and not tamper with anything that they know and love. For new players, the original trilogy would probably be a bit harsh, especially for a modern gamer. It would probably feel extremely punishing. But if there is someone out there who heard of the Bard's Tale and wants to discover what all the fuss is about, this is an excellent way of checking it out. Having modern conveniences without losing out too much of the original game. And that is ultimately what a good remaster is supposed to be. And, well, as a remaster, if you like this game type, you like this game type. If you don't, you don't. And there's nothing anyone can say to persuade you. But as a remaster, I would argue that this is as close to 10 out of 10 as possible, without giving it 10 out of 10, because you don't want to, because nothing is perfect. A very, very, very well made remaster. And on that note, I can finally end this video and say I will put a link to the Steam page, so if you're interested, you can acquire this trilogy. But outside of that, thanks for watching, take care. We'll see you next time. Bye bye for now.